I'm attorney Phil Jusino, and this is Finding Common Ground here on Altice. Got a great show planned for tonight. The date is April 1, 2020. It is about 8:30 p.m. We're taping this show, which will run on Saturday. All my shows run on Saturday at 10 a.m., channel 115. Normally, I don't state the dates if you watch my prior shows because I sometimes rerun shows, especially if it's about a legal topic or something that's good for another show as opposed to, let's say, current events, which can go stale. This is a very important show. The reason why I stated the date is I'm going to be saying a lot of things tonight. And some of them might be proven correct, some of them might be proven wrong. I'm not afraid to stick my neck out and say what I believe based on my research, based on what I've been reading, seeing. Right now, COVID-19 is spreading across the country. And about 2 months ago, our lives were very different. 80% of the country is self-quarantined. People over 70 are told not to leave your house. So our lives are very, very different. It's April Fool's Day, but there's not much to smile about today, not much to joke about today. I'm an attorney, and a couple of weeks ago they said no more court except for an emergency situation, like someone being arrested, or I had court the other day because CPS took the children away from a client of mine. So I had to go to court. But for the most part, the next court date that I have to be in the building is May 4th. Now, President Trump just said the self-distancing rules will go for another few weeks to the end of April, April 30th. So I pray to God that in May, I will be able to get to work. As long as with the other attorneys, people will get to drive trucks, even though I know a lot of truckers are on the road. They'll get to open their restaurants. Hopefully, there'll be a restaurant to open. There will be liquor stores opening, gun shops opening. In other words, life will resume. Very, very important. So, in about 2 minutes, we're going to start the show, and I'm going to talk about a number of things covering the landscape as I see it going forward, the business landscape. Some statistics as we know it, and they're changing constantly. As I look at it from day to day, more people are dying, more people are getting it, more people are being healed. So let's get to it. I'm going to start off the show. I'm going to call an audible. For you football fans, you know what an audible is. When a quarterback gets to the line of scrimmage, he sees something and he wants to exploit it, so he calls an audible. Hydroxyclorquine was something that I've been writing about and posting about for about 2 weeks. When I first heard a patient talk about how he was saying goodbye to his wife, he was dying, and he was given hydroxychloroquine. And Dr. Oz was on, it was a Fox News show, and Dr. Oz was on, and he was listening to this patient, and he was amazed. You could see it in his face. Now, he's a well-respected doctor, so not easily given to an anecdotal story where someone says, oh yes, I tried this thing and it saved me. But since then, I've been writing about it. Now, the president at a press conference talked about it, and he was attacked. And they said, how do you know it's going to work? And he said, what do you got to lose? It might work, it might not work. I wrote about it, I posted about it, and I was attacked. People said, I heard it's bad for the heart, it has side effects. I looked it up, I didn't see those side effects. Now, hydroxychloroquine is a drug that's known to cure malaria and also lupus, among other things. Now, it's FDA approved. That's the important thing. So this is not something that, someone just made it up and say, look, let's try it. This is FDA approved. Now, when you use a drug that's FDA approved but for a different purpose, like COVID-19, the drug wasn't manufactured or tested for COVID-19. Coronavirus. It's called off-label. Doctors do it all the time. All right? I heard from a pharmacist that says we do it all the time, off-label. So now there was a French study, I think it was only about 80 people, I think 79 or 80 people survived and benefited from that drug. Then another study, I believe in the United States, was 1,100 if I'm not mistaken, and they benefited from the drug. Now, about a week or so ago, a man and woman, husband and wife, he was sick, and I think she was too, And they tried this, it wasn't even a medicine, it was something that you use in a fish tank. And it sounded like hydroxychloroquine, but it wasn't. And even if it was, no person should be administered to themselves unless you're a doctor. And this man died. Very tragic, very foolish. And people were saying, in fact, the media came out and said, see, it'll kill you. No, that wasn't the drug. That was bad reporting. So this is a drug that today, April 1st, it might even been March 31st, but I read it today. It was just approved by the FDA to cure COVID-19. There's another drug it's combined with, and there are other drugs coming out. We have to get a vaccination. We have to get a vaccination because this could recycle in next year, the year after, in 5 years. We have to get a vaccination like the flu. I'm not liking it to the flu. It's a different, it's a worse animal entirely. But we have vaccinations, and not everyone gets their flu vaccination. In 2017 to 2018, 61,000 people died because of the flu. Some years we lose 40,000, 30, 60. It varies, but it's a lot of people. If we have a vaccination for COVID-19, which may very well kill more than 100,000 people here in the United States and many more worldwide, that will go a long way. And we're still about a year to 18 months away. So let's look at some of the numbers. And some of the numbers that I talk about were reported on April 1st, 2020. So tomorrow when I get up, the numbers will be different. And the next day and the next day and the next 2 weeks, the president says, we're in for a real bumpy ride. And we're going to see the deaths go up. And we're trying to, they call level the curve. In New York and Jersey, they were a little slow out of the box, and the curve is very high. Ohio, they shut down things, I think it was March 15th, very early on, and you see a flat curve. Look it up. The Ohio curve is very, very flat. Now again, that doesn't mean that Governor Cuomo or the governor of New Jersey did a bad job. They could have done better. The president could have done better. If we knew more to begin with, if China was more honest with us, we would have been in a better position to say what is coming here is bad. It'd be like an advancing army coming and you have no reconnaissance. That's what it'd be like. And then all of a sudden they hit the shores and then you say, oh my God, what are we going to do? All right. Kind of like on December 7, 1941, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Right? There were things we could have picked up on radar. It was ignored. We didn't have the same technology we have today. It would have never happened that way, but it did. Here too, China lied to us, and they're going to rule the day. And we'll talk about that a little later. It's going to be a whole different world. And I pray to God President Trump is reelected, because I'm not so sure the next president, if it's not President Trump, is going to take the bull by the horns, that being China and other countries, and do what is necessary. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but 80% of our antibiotics come from China. That should not be the case. Companies like Eli Lilly, Pfizer, AbbVie, they have to step up and make these medicines. And I always joke, we can still get our dog you-know-what from, and our doohickeys from China. The important medicines, the delivery devices, the instruments for our medical needs cannot just be in the basket of China, under their control. That cannot happen, and that will not happen. In fact, President Trump has been talking about it for a while, and he's been called racist and all kinds of names, because he's saying we have to be more careful. Even when he wanted to stop a while ago, people from China coming here, Schumer made a comment that, I think he might even said he was racist, but certainly that wasn't the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do. And it ended up in the courts. So let's look at a couple of statistics. And I'm going to look at the top 5 states, what they call the most impacted states. These are the worst of them. There are some states that are hardly affected. New York, in order, New York, New Jersey, California, Michigan, Florida, those are the top 5. Washington is 8, and that's where it really started in a nursing home. 19 people in one nursing home died. And the staff there brought it to other nursing homes, unwittingly, of course. And that's why when we get to the numbers, you'll see the death rate is much higher. New York, about, and I'm going to round off. I'm not going to get down to the exact number. Almost 84,000 people, by now it might be, 84,000 people have COVID-19 in New York State. New Jersey, about 19,000. Big difference from 1 to 2. California, about 9,000. Michigan, about 8,000. Florida, about 6,700. Closing in on 7,000, it might be there already. What about the deaths? Because a lot of people are going to get healed. And they were being healed even before hydroxychloroquine. Deaths. New York, we're probably at 2,000 by now. New Jersey, about 267, close to 300. California, about 200. Michigan, close to 300. And Florida, only 85. Let's look at the death rate, because that's very telling. New York, it's about 2.3. New Jersey, about 1.4. 2.1 for California. Michigan is 3.4. Florida, 1.2. And that's how the country had been running for a while like that. Number 8 is Washington. That's a cautionary tale. And that's how we found out also that it affects older people worse than it does younger people. You can still get it. A baby died of it. Teenagers can get it. Young people can get it. But it affects older people and people with pre-existing conditions. Heart disease, diabetes, cancer. If you're a young person and you have those things, you have to be extra careful because it can kill you. I heard a 95-year-old who was in Iwo Jima in the military, World War II, a hero. 95 years old, and he beat it. And he made a comment like he says, this BS is not going to kill me. He beat it, 95. But you don't want to be 95 and getting COVID-19, right? The death rate for Washington, 4.3. That is high. Not as high as Italy, but it's high. Why is it high? Well, first of all, the first 19 people that died were in a nursing home, and other people that died were in a nursing home. It's an older, if you look at the deaths, it's an older population. Not so much Washington as a state, but the people that got it and the way they got it. So, big difference. It's almost twice New York. At 4.3, Washington, the 8th state. They lost about 250 people. About 5,300 have it. The country, the United States, right now it's about 200,000 people in that ballpark have contracted COVID-19. About 4,300 people died, a little over that. And in the morning, it's going to be a higher number. And it's going to grow because some projections, Dr. Fauci, who's working closely with the president, said we could have had 1 million or more if we didn't do anything or didn't do enough. We could have about 100,000 to 240,000. Now, he even said, the models, you have to be careful. Because I learned in day 1 of accounting, when I was in college, garbage in, garbage out. When you think about it, these models are projections. Nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody knows for sure. This isn't 2 plus 2 is 4. It is far from it. And when you think about it, an estimate or a best guess is still that, a guess. You're taking figures in, you're processing them. I hope they're not getting the data from China, because that would really be garbage in, garbage out. But they are approximating, they're rounding, they're doing different things, and they're coming up with these projections. Now, I said a while ago, or about 2 weeks ago, I predict, and we'll be able to look at the show down the road, that the final figures for the death rate, and I don't mean to be callous when I call it that, but that's what it is. The percentage of people dying that contract the disease. All right? So if 100 people get it and 1 dies, that's 1%. Right now, I predict that it may in fact go below 1%, which would be great. Still more than the flu. Right? I'm not taking it lightly. The reason why I say that is this. I was watching the figures every single day, and I had my calculator, and I was calculating, and for a while it was 1.2, 1.2, 1.2. Now there's more testing. People are dying. People are surviving. But what's interesting And I think somewhat telling is you hear the doctors all the time say, well, there are people that get it and they don't come for medical attention. Maybe they're young, they get it. Some people get the flu, they don't go to the doctor. Just like some people don't get the vaccination. So they get it. They're not counted as having it because they don't go to the doctor, the hospital, to get tested. And a lot of people weren't tested in the beginning, and they suffered and they got through it. And the ones that were bad, they went to the hospital. Now, if you die from it, you will, of course, be a statistic of having died from COVID-19. There'll be an autopsy. They'll figure it out that you had it. Or if you go to the hospital and you die there, they will know you have it. So I'm hoping that it's under 1%, 1.1, 1.2. Because if you look at New Jersey, it's 1.4. New York is even 2.3. I think that's a little high. I think it's going to go down. The more testing, the bigger pool of people, and hopefully with this drug, hydroxychloroquine, more people will be saved. And I predicted that 2 weeks ago. I was attacked for it. Trump was attacked for it. In fact, I did a post. I just said the name of the drug. And one person said, it'll kill you. It's bad for your heart. I looked it up. I always cite my source. Right? As an attorney, that's what I do. If I write a brief and I cite a law, I'll say, People v. Jones, whatever the case might be. Or I'll say, Dr. Oz said this, or Dr. Jones, or some authority said this. So it's not just me. If it's my sole opinion, I will say that. It is my belief. Right? And I've heard other experts say it could be under 1, but that is my opinion. I could be wrong. Only time will tell. And I hope I am right, because that means less people would have died. Is it guaranteed we're going to lose 100,000? No, we could lose less. The social distancing, which even me in the beginning was like, is this going to work? Can you really keep the people inside? A lot of people are inside. I occasionally will go to the supermarket or get gasoline or stop at the office briefly to get the mail. There are a lot of people out there, and I live on Long Island. A lot of people out there. And some people are mingling and getting close to each other. They say stay 6 feet apart. Not all people are doing that. Right? And people are coming and going and bringing people into the house and leaving and going to work, and then they come home, and then you have a lot of doctors and nurses that are putting their lives on the line every single day, and they go home at the end of the day and they could give it to their family. Doctors have died. Police officers have died. I think firemen have got it. Those are first responders. They're out there. And I want to shout out to truckers. Because think about it. We forget them. We talk about doctors and we talk about lawyers. No, I'm only kidding about that. Doctors and nurses and all of that. That's great. They're very important. But when you don't have any food in your cupboard or your refrigerator, what are you going to do? You're going to go to the supermarket. How does the food get there? Truckers. So they have to keep moving. They're risking their lives too. Differently than a doctor and nurse, granted, but they're still risking their lives. And they're doing something very important. They might be bringing a delivery of masks in, or something for ventilators, or gloves. Very, very important. This is a team effort. Even people that are doing nothing by staying home on the couch, they're doing something. Imagine that. I saw a funny post that showed a chubby guy laying on a couch, and it said lazy something. And then it showed the same guy on a couch, and it's after COVID-19, and it said, patriot. He's doing his job. And me sitting on my couch, I hope I'm doing a good job. I do get out of the house occasionally, but for the most part, I'm a shut-in. My dad and my mom are going nuts, especially my dad, because he works every day at my office. And he's not a very young man. He's healthy. For the most part, he's in good shape. He's trimmer than me. And so is my mom, for that matter. And he wants to go out and work. He wants to get his lunch and go to the bodega and buy his soup, or go to Quick Check and get something over there. He wants to live his life. One of my other assistants is also up there in years. And she said to me, Phil, I'm going stir crazy. Active people, it's not natural for us to be shut in for this long a period of time. In a snowstorm, you're shut in for 2 days and you're pulling your hair out. Why? Because we're not used to being inside all the time. 2 days. We've been in going on 2 weeks now. I remember, not this past week, but the week prior, it was all hands on deck because we got the word Monday we wouldn't be able to open the office. So we all got into the office, got our things. Good thing we have the technology to work from home. I can talk into my phone, dictate a letter, email it to one of my assistants. They could type up the letter, a divorce agreement, whatever. I'm still working every day. I'm billing clients. I'm doing work. I spoke to about 6 clients today on the phone. Did a divorce agreement. Talked to the court. I have a case on tomorrow. It'll be by Skype or by phone. We are still working. My offices, I can't speak for all attorneys' offices, but I know other attorneys' offices are working. I had a 4-way conference on the phone the other day, almost settled the case, 95%. That was the divorce agreement I did. We pretty much settled the matter, a couple of remaining issues, but I got the agreement done. The day it was that night, the night we had the 4-way conference. So we have technologies today, Skype, Zoom, you name it. We can do that. Right. So let me just go back. I digress a little bit. With Washington, the nursing homes, you had older people. That's why that number is 4.3. That's not the natural death rate for this particular drug. Now, let's talk about Italy for a second. We all heard about Italy. It was the hardest hit. Now, America has more cases. You surpassed it. But let's look at the deaths. So for Italy, you have about 110,000 cases. Now, remember I said United States hit about 200,000. So we are going to surpass more than double, maybe triple, maybe quadruple what Italy had. Italy's a smaller country. The death rate is almost 12%. 13,000 and change people died. Now, I think it's slowed down. We're still going up. Think about that. 12%. Remember I said we're going to probably be under 1%? Even if we were 2%, that's significantly lower than 12%. A 10% difference. That's significant. Why? Italy is an aged population now. In America, the average age is 38. It's 45 in Italy. Now, it might not seem like a lot, but it's bigger. And 23%, 23, so a quarter of Italians, just about, are over 65. They also live close together. You have a lot of households. We have a lot of people there, more so than in America. More so than in America. Smoking was also talked about. I'm not so sure the smoking aspect is as relevant because the smoking population is only about 2 or 3 percentage points different. They smoke more than we do. It's like 24 to 21%. Nobody should be smoking, but 24. Vaping also is bad for you, and that causes you, if you get it, more likely to die. So the lesson here is we got to stop it. We got to get the vaccination. We have medicines that can stop it in its tracks, and that would be great. If we could do that and keep this down to like a normal flu season, that would be tremendous. When I say a normal flu, 60,000 people. I don't want to see anybody die, but it's a fact of life. People are going to die. 90 people a day die on the roads. People, 500,000 die of smoking. I'm getting ahead of myself, but smoking. All right. 6 million people die in car accidents. I said 90 a day. All right. People die every day. Life goes on. But we have to stop this thing because I'm 55 years old and I've never seen anything like this before in my life. Never. I've seen flus come and go. We never quarantined. Right? The only time I've ever been in the house for a couple of days is major snowstorms. A hurricane didn't even stop us. Hurricane Gloria years ago when I was in college. I think for a day we were inside. That was it. Nothing like this. And I think it caught us. And we have to do a better job. Almost like preppers, you know. They plan, they have the food, they have whatever they need. They have it. Now, President Trump has been president for about 3 or so years. But the culture was never to really be prepared, like having the amount of ventilators we need. Nothing like this. We've never seen this before. In fact, Bill Gates, I think it was 5 years ago, maybe more, I just saw the video, talked about if we ever have 10 million people die, and we may not get 10 million people, maybe in the the world, you might have that. But he said it wouldn't be a war, it'd be a virus, and we wouldn't be ready for it. All right? So maybe other people said it, but he certainly said that. Smart guy. Right? And I've always thought, too, what if you have one of these pandemics? Spanish flu, 1918. 50 million people died, or more, maybe 100 million. The plague. And when you talk about those numbers, the population wasn't what it is today in 1918. Very big difference. It's 102 years ago. Very big difference. That would be like, I don't know, 400 million, maybe the population of the United States or more, 300 something million. Now, what's interesting is I was talking to a client on the phone today, as a matter of fact, and she asked me what my blood type, she's in the medical field, and she asked me what my blood type was. And I said, oh, I'm O positive. But she said, you said, oh? I said, yes. She said, oh, okay, you're in a better shape than an A. So I said, really? I said, has that been published? Or she says, well, oh, you're better to fight certain, I guess, viruses, or it's for whatever reason, you're better protected than A. Apparently A, B, and B, it's not much of a difference. So I did some research, and this is what I found out. There was a study in Wuhan, China, where this came about, and Shenzhen. I think 2,150 or thereabouts were studied. They come out with the conclusion that A, you're at a significantly higher risk to contract COVID-19. O, you're significantly less likely to contract COVID-19. Now, in the study, and I'm just going to go by A and O, that was the only statistical difference. The other ones were almost identical, like 10%, 9%. In Wuhan, China, 31% of the population is A. 34 is O, so O a little more than A. Yet, 38% of the population that caught COVID-19, just caught it, not necessarily died from it, 38% A. 25% O. So statistically, that's a difference. A, B, and O is like 1 or 2. So that doesn't mean I'm O, let me go to the store right now and not take precautions. No. It's good to know I'm an O, and I like to hear that, but then again, I feel bad for people that are A. But it could lead to further vaccinations or cures because something about O blood type protects you better than if you had A blood type. Now maybe down the road a disease will come out where O will be more likely. Those are important things to know. There, I said it, so now you know. What I want to talk about now is what I perceive to be the changing business landscape in America. Maybe the world, but certainly in America. I'm going to limit it to America. But actually, before I do that, my producer, before we do that, I just want to talk, I'm going to stay on camera one. I want to talk about the balance between saving lives, which is extremely important, obviously, and the economy and mental health issues. All right, so you have got to save lives, most important thing. I'm not going to dispute that. But you also have the economy, which is extremely important, and mental health issues, suicides, substance abuse, right? Domestic violence. Right? When I was in the DA's office here in Suffolk, I was one of the first ADAs put into the domestic violence unit. This must have been about 1990. We had domestic violence cases, but they created a bureau. I was in it. I was a line ADA at the time, and I was put into that bureau. So I'm well acquainted with domestic violence, and in my practice, I see it all the time. Orders of protection, criminal court, family court, you name it. I see it. People, let's say you have an abusive husband or an abusive wife, and they're confined. That could be exacerbated, and I've heard things already. Now, some families are brought closer together. It's great. I haven't spoken to my son this much in a long time. Every day. I see him. I'm not saying it's not a good thing. It's a good thing. All right. I miss my parents. I don't get to see them. I'm used to seeing my dad every day just about. but he's not in the office, so I don't see him. Grandparents are very, 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 and I see this on Facebook, and I know people that are grandparents. They're very sad because they can't see their grandkids. Now, my daughter is married to a man whose parents have a beautiful little granddaughter, named Lila. They can't see her, except on like Skype or Facebook, because they can't be brought together, social distancing. It's sad. You know, to go 2 weeks when you see a grandkid on a regular basis is very sad. And you take for granted a lot of things, the people that you see and you don't get to see. So, but let's talk about the interplay between those things. Now, when Trump talks about the economy and we got to get people back to work, and even when I said it, I can't be in there for another month or so, people criticized me and they criticized him. And they say, all you care about is the economy. No, I care about the economy. Now, let me just say this, and maybe this is harsh, but if a politician or a doctor says saving lives is the only thing, or it's more important, but let's say the only thing, it's the only thing we should consider, they're either lying or they're ignorant. And I know that sounds harsh, but I'll tell you why. If that was true, if saving lives were the only thing we had to do, we would quarantine the American people every flu season. I'm going to repeat that. We would quarantine the American people every flu season.
I'd like to think about yours.
My producer would like to comment.
Think about yours.
What about it?
Remember when they were when the shark first attacked, and the mayor was
yes,
exactly right there.
All right. See, now that was the extreme where a mayor only cared about the economy, the summer dollars.
You see the you know, like the general idea of that, and yeah, I guess.
Well, look, I think we can all agree the most important thing is to save lives, but you have to balance it because, like I said before, and I'll say it one more time, if that were true, if saving lives were the only thing, we would quarantine the American people every flu season. Now you look at me like, what are you talking about? You want to save 61,000 people? Quarantine the American people. I'm not advocating that, but if that's the goal. Also, 6 million people die every single year in car accidents. Many get maimed, crippled, injured in serious ways, and in minor ways too, but hurt. But 6 million people die on the roads in car accidents, and that might even include motorcycles.
I think it's more jarring for people to hear about a new virus.
I understand that, but the point I'm making is that if we wanted to save, if lives were the only thing that mattered, we wouldn't have cars. Now, I know it sounds ridiculous because we have cars, but if saving lives was the only thing, all right? Smoking, 480,000 people, so almost 500,000. If you add secondhand smoke of about 41,000, you have about 500,000 people die of smoking. Why do we allow smoking? It's not even a good benefit. Cars, of course, you go to work, you travel, you get around, good for the economy. Smoking, it's good for the economy in some respects because obviously Phillip Morris and these companies make a lot of money. They employ people. But the goal cannot just be saving lives. I remember one, I think it was the lieutenant governor, it's like the VP of Texas, he said, I'm 70 something, and if we had to go back to work and God forbid I died, you know, that's sometimes the price you pay for living and interacting with people. You know, remember the John Travolta movie, The Boy in the Plastic Bubble? We don't live like that. Even he got fed up. And he came out to go to the pretty girl who was combing the hair of a horse. I still remember that scene. And the Paul Williams song came on. What would you say if I up and walked away? Right? Cue that song. No, it's copyrighted, so we can't do that. So we have to find a balance. And President Trump, I submit, knows this better than anyone, or certainly as well as anyone else, as a businessman. Think about this for a second. Nancy Pelosi has been a politician pretty much her adult life, since mid-30s. Chuck Schumer, he graduated law school and he became a politician. Joe Biden has been for like 40 years or something ridiculous. So these people really don't have any business sense. They don't. Let's be honest, they're politicians. Politicians aren't necessarily known for their business sense. Bright people. Schumer went to a top law school. All right. We're still on camera one, producer, correct?
Yeah, I was just giving you a friendly reminder.
Yes.
To move up my spot.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. So President Trump understands this as a businessman. He knows we got to get the economy going. People will commit suicide. Domestic violence incidents can increase. People are starting already, more drugs and alcohol. They're shut in. They can't take it anymore. Also, the economy. People are suffering, and it's only been 2 weeks, not even. Businesses will go out of business. No question. They will go out of business, and some will never open. The next segment, which we're going to get to in a second, talks about the landscape. All right? But to get back to what I was saying, we have to find a balance, because if it was only about saving lives, we wouldn't have airplanes. People crash in those small planes all the time. People die in cars. People die smoking. People get diseases. They get lung cancer when they smoke and other diseases. So we have to find that balance. Now, what I want to talk about now is the changing landscape of America with regard to business. Over 99% of American businesses, of the 2.87, it's almost 29 million businesses, are what they call small businesses. Now, small doesn't only mean 5, but it means a small business when you think of a business. It could be 100, but it's not like, Phillip Morris or Apple. I'm talking about family or small businesses. Could be a franchise even. Like someone owns a McDonald's and they got 15 employees. It's a franchise as opposed to corporate. That's a small business. 80% of small businesses have fewer than 20 employees. Think about that. 80%, 8 out of 10 small businesses have 20 or less employees. That's small. Okay? 40% of the businesses have revenue under $100,000. Think about that for a second. I have a law firm, and the revenue that I make, that $100,000 is puny. But they're a business. It could be a deli, it could be a small restaurant or something like that, a service that's provided, maybe a landscaper, and he has 1 or 2 employees and he's bringing in $100,000. Right? But so the small business is the economic engine of this country. It's an anchor. But one of the most important statistics that I saw is that 48% of all U.S. employees, think about it, it's almost half, of all U.S. employees, all American employees, big, small, doesn't matter, of all work for small businesses. That's a staggering number. Now, most people would probably think, no, it's got to be in the big businesses like Apple, Amazon, Walmart. No, it's not. A lot of those businesses will not survive and they will go under. It's a sad prediction I make. They're not going to make it, even with the stimulus. And that's going to help. But business, like restaurants, and then how do you start up right away? All right, then here we come. Now we have to get product. We have to get the food. We have to get people back to this and that. It's going to be hard to do. Some businesses won't make it. Big businesses are going to benefit and have been benefiting and will continue to benefit. Think about who's hiring. Always look at it that way. The restaurants going out of business, the hotel industry, the airlines, the cruise ships, they're not hiring. They're laying people off. The hotel industry has been decimated. Cruise lines, forget it. Airlines, I always say that, joke around. You could have a leper in the back of the plane. People are getting on that plane because they want to go somewhere. And when we're allowed to travel again, people will get on the planes. No question. People were doing it when they were told not to do it. The cruise ships are another story. That's like an incubator. People were getting sick even before COVID-19. You always hear about it. People are falling over the rails. A little baby was dropped. They've had a whole host of problems, and they're going to have a big problem going forward. All right. But the big businesses, let's look who's hiring. Amazon, Walmart, Kroger. I don't have any around here, but Kroger, Papa John's. A lot of the franchise restaurants are hiring. The ones that deliver, certainly. Right? What's that? Uber Eats. Some of those businesses, Omaha Steaks, they're hiring. because they have a mail order business. People order, so you don't have to go to the store and pick it up. And they can have people in a factory cranking out the product. I said Kroger, CVS is hiring, Pizza Hut, Domino's. Those places can survive because that was basically their business model. A local restaurant that's doing delivery, that's not their business model. They're starving. Right? I ordered tonight from an Italian restaurant that never delivered before. I didn't even know they delivered. I called them up and I'm like, can I Uber? No, we deliver now. Because they got to get their product out the door to people. And you can't go in. I guess you can go in and just pick it up and take it out, maybe. Some places, but the places that the business model was mail order, like Amazon. Amazon, I heard they hiring about 100,000 people. They're king. All right? I'm glad I invested in them a while ago. But they're doing very well. They're not really hurt by this. Because if you're hiring 100,000, you can't be hurt by it. Because people say, wait a minute, I want to order toilet paper, or I want to order that outfit, or I want to order that tool. I'm not going to, the company to pick it up. I don't want to go there. You order it and it's delivered to your house, like it's been for a while. That's why they're very successful. The stock price is like $1,900 a share. So they're doing well. The next thing I want to talk about is the lessons learned from COVID-19. Right? You think about it, all right? We have to look at how we were vulnerable. We have to become more independent as a country. And I'm going to give you some statistics that I already started a little while ago, but are frightening. They're frightening to me. And I don't frighten easily. China makes 80% of the antibiotics used in America. 80%. Antibiotics, an important substance, medication. We need that. And I even heard China say if they wanted to, they could shut us off and injure us and harm us. They could do that. I don't trust China. 95% of ibuprofen, we all heard of ibuprofen, many of us use it. 95% comes from China. 70% of acetaminophen, right? Hydrocortisone, 91%. Think about those numbers. We're not talking 50, even 60, 80s and 90% come from China. That cannot continue to happen. Companies like I mentioned before, Pfizer, AbbVie, I don't stock in those companies, I got to be honest. They can do a better job. They're great big companies. They can make those medicines here and make it profitably here. And I said earlier, I did a post, they said China will rue the day. They will rue the day that either they gave it intentionally or negligently. Right? The jury's not out on that, but let's assume that it was not something they engineered. They were slow to tell us, and more is going to come out. There should be a commission to investigate that. Not just how the president and the governors are doing, that's fine. We always want to do better the next time around. But China lied to us. I'm sure of that. They didn't tell us. If they would have given us a heads up, there would have been more that the world could have done. The planet could have been in a better position than it is today. Look at Italy. 13,000 deaths with that population. We could hit 100,000, which would be worse than any flu season in recent memory. It's funny, the CDC doesn't keep those numbers, but other agencies do. So we know. It's been reported. You could look it up. 2017, 2018, 61,000 people died of the flu. This is more contagious. It's more fatal. It caught us by surprise. We don't have a vaccination yet. We have that with the flu. Now, maybe in the future, more people will get the flu vaccine because now they're going to think, all right, what can I do? Now, I heard a good question asked of Dr. Siegel on Fox News, and they said, with the hand sanitizer, are we overusing it? And he said, could be, but I don't care in the short term. Because look, we need a natural immunity. If you don't have any kind of immunity, you're going to get knocked over by just about anything. Right? So you have to have an immunity. And sometimes when you use hand sanitizers and all these things, you're adversely affecting your health. George Carlin did a good skit. Look it up. George Carlin and immunity. I think you could probably Google that and you see it. Hilarious. And he says, I used to swim in raw sewage when we were kids in the East River. I think it was the East River. And he said, we never got anything. And obviously he's exaggerating a little bit, but what he's saying is he had a good immunity system. If you took a child and you put them in bubble wrap and you kept them in the house, they might not catch a lot of these things. But eventually they're going to go out into the world. And they're going to catch these things. And if they're not ready for it, like if they don't get vaccinations, they will die or they will be harmed in a significant way. Because we need an immunity. I like to consider myself an excellent immunity system. I rarely get sick. Other than my bad back, I'm a healthy guy. Right? But why do some people always get it? And immunity is very, very, very important. If you look at even in our history, how when the Spanish conquistadors came, and the Incas and the Aztecs and those empires, many of them were killed off, not because of war, because of illness, because they caught things. They didn't have an immunity to what these Spanish conquerors and explorers were bringing with them. Almost like when our astronauts come back from space, they have to be quarantined for a while because we don't know what they're bringing back. You have to be careful. But we have to be realistic. Now, things are going to change in the way we carry out our lives. I bet you handshaking doesn't come back for a long, long time. Because think about it, when you're shaking someone's hand, you're exchanging germs in a sense. Now, we never really thought about it, except maybe during the flu season, it's, oh, you sneezed, I don't want to touch you. That is going to be the new normal. Things will be considered the new normal. Right? Now, people cough. They look at, oh my God, what do you got? Might not even be that. A lot of people are testing negative because they could have the flu. A nephew of mine had the flu. We were worried at first. Does he have it? He had the flu. People have seasonal allergies. People have colds. It's not always, just like now, whenever you read, sad to say my brother passed away or this person, I wouldn't think, oh, he died of COVID-19. No. People are dying from other things. Cancer, they're dying of old age, a stroke, all kinds of things. But this COVID-19 is something that I've never seen in my 55 years. I don't even think my parents have seen anything like this where the government is saying, you have to stay in. You can't go to work. You can't leave. For some people, you can't leave your house. You can't go in. One thing got me angry, and don't forget, we still have a Constitution. We have a United States Constitution. And the government can't just do whatever they want. Now, I know in wartime and things like that, they have powers. Lincoln suspended writs of habeas corpus during the Civil War. That was controversial at the time. He had the War Powers Act. He did certain things. But the law is the least restrictive means. So the government can't just say, like I said before, they can't just say, we don't want 61,000 people to die of the flu. You can't go out. No, that's not the least restrictive way. They are letting out people upstate New York that raped children. They're letting them out of jail. Now, some people say, well, a warden said, it wasn't a warden, but maybe a local politician. I didn't know they were releasing those kinds of guys. Well, come on. That's a fact. Look it up. I forget, it was way upstate somewhere. In New York, the de Blasio wants to let people out, probably give them Mets tickets too. That might not be the best way to do it. The feds, in one of the jails, basically was a lockdown. You can't go out. You cannot go out of your cell. Okay. Hey, look, if 70-year-old people are being locked up pretty much in their house, why should a prisoner get out? Why should a minister be arrested? Maybe it's not the best thing for him to do, but isn't it like ironic that church services, people need that right now, the religion to fall back on, and they're arresting a minister or a priest or was it a preacher, a pastor? but letting people out of jail because they don't want them to catch them. Let them on the streets. Okay. A guy was released recently. He was being held on bail for stabbing his girlfriend. And he had a history. He was a violent guy. There was talk about letting him out. They might have already let him out. Why let him out? Keep him in. And if he gets it, okay, he gets it. Keep him in. And if he needs medical attention, give him the medical attention. All right? That's what you have to do. We can't lose our minds over this. And we don't want government to think they can do whatever they want to do. We only got about how many minutes? About 3 minutes. I just wanted to do. Legislation was passed recently, about $2.2 trillion. Like a stimulus, they call it. Or more relief, in a sense, because of what's going on, COVID-19. What I didn't like, who I find disgusting, is Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. But Nancy more, and I'm not a misogynist. It's just, she loaded that bill up with pork. I think it was like $25 million for the Kennedy Center, not the Kennedy Space Center, but the Kennedy Center. And they laid people off. Dozens of people they laid off. And that's a rich institution. We're not talking about somebody that serves the underprivileged. And there were other agencies and entities that got a lot of money. They have to focus on what is the goal? To save businesses, especially small businesses, and big businesses too, but they need less saving. Helping people that are unemployed, make sure they keep their money. The poor people, safety net, all of that should be the focus. Not how can we get a rich entity like the Kennedy Center that probably gets more money from donations than a lot of places. The rich people go there. It's like, the New York Opera, let's help them out. They have benefactors and they have people donating all the time. Be like saying, let's help Harvard. Their donations are down. Come on. Help the people that need to be helped. Don't put pork in. I hope, and again, we're going to look at this show down the road. I'm hoping President Trump, and I believe he will win re-election. Biden, I'd be surprised if he even sees the convention and gets the nomination. He is shot. I saw videos of him, and I really mean it. Dementia. Something is wrong with that guy. I'm not talking about his policies. Nice enough guy. Bernie's not going to beat him. They talk about Cuomo. Cuomo is a liberal politician that signed late-term abortion and lit up the World Trade Center in pink. Stricter gun control laws, driver's licenses for illegal immigrants. He's a liberal guy. Yeah, he's looking good, standing there in a controlled setting with a friendly media, unlike Trump, who's getting shot with arrows and you name it. So Cuomo is a liberal man. I don't think he wouldn't want to accept the VP. I think it would probably go to Gretchen Whitmer, happens to be the governor of Michigan, which was up there on that list. I think it was 4. She's got a good chance of being picked because that was a blue state from 92 to 2016 when President Trump won it. He might pick her. He doesn't need to pick somebody from California, New York. He's going to win those states. I'm talking about Biden or whoever. All right. We got to wrap these things up. I'm going to go to camera 1. I really want to thank you for watching and understand that this is not the normal studio. This is my man cave at my house. All right. You can see a little bit of it. Maybe I'll give you a tour another time. I had my tie on. My producer said it's best if I took it off, and I took it off. I took his advice. Thank you, Dan. I feel a little more relaxed, a little cooler. And it was weird putting on a shirt and tie. I haven't done that in almost 2 weeks. Interesting. But anyway, I want to thank you for watching the show. The date is April 1st, 2020. Let's hope things get better. Let's hope by the end of April we can all climb over the snowbank, see the other people out there. And lastly, I wrote a book a while back, probably about 5 years ago, called Divorce: A Practical Guide. It's a great read. You can get it on Amazon. I talked about Amazon before. You can get it on JusinoLaw.com. It's a great read. It gives you information that you need to be an informed consumer. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. When you're watching the show, it'll be the 4th of April. Let's hope things are going in the right direction. You have a good day. Thank you.